Welcome to our presentation regarding the mixing of chemistry with healthy eating as part of our Chemistry Week celebration. So following are the objectives for this presentation. We're going to identify key food groups or food subgroups that promote healthy eating. We're going to explain some of the chemical components that are in the identified food groups or subgroups. We're going to list foods that contain the chemical components, and then review some of the benefits of those chemical components related to our human health. So when we think about healthy eating, there are a number of so-called buzzwords that might come to mind. And here are just a few of them. We have the plant-based foods, because those are foods that are derived from plant sources. We have whole foods, foods that have not been processed or minimally processed. We have healthy microbiome, ways to help create bacterial diversity in the gut. We have anti-inflammatory foods, foods that are rich in nutrients such as fiber and phytochemicals to reduce our oxidative stress and inflammation. We have the epigenetic foods, which are foods that contain a class of bioactive dietary components, which have shown to modify our epigenome, leading to beneficial health outcomes. We also have the term heart-healthy foods, foods that promote heart health, including blood pressure and cholesterol levels. And then we've seen the term superfoods. And this is actually a marketing term for food claiming to have health benefits resulting from an exceptional nutrient density. And so I'm sure you've heard some of these foods at some point in time. So there are several food groups or food types that are often associated with these healthy buzzwords. And here are just a few of them that we're going to cover today. So we have vegetable group, which is, of course, is a food group per the MyPlate tool. We have fish and shellfish, which is a food type that is part of the protein group on the MyPlate tool. We're going to talk about nuts and seeds, a food type that is also part of the protein group on the MyPlate. And then we have pulses. If one eats meat, poultry, and seafood, the pulses then would be considered a part of the vegetable group. Whereas if one obtains protein from plant sources, then pulses would count as part of the protein group. So before we look at these food groups and subgroups, let's define food chemistry, because it's not something we often associate with food. So food chemistry is the actual branch of science that studies the chemical processes and interactions of the biological and non-biological components of foods. This would include components of foods such as carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, water, vitamins, and minerals. Food chemistry also looks at food additives, including those related to taste, texture, color, quality, as well as the whole concept of food processing. So now that we know what food chemistry is, let's take a look at each of the identified food groups to see how food chemistry is part of that healthy eating. So the first food group we'll look at is vegetables. Now we all know some of the key chemical components in vegetables include a wide variety of vitamins and minerals, carbohydrates, water, plant protein, and fiber. But within each of these different foods and chemical components, there are additional chemical components that have been linked to our health. The first one is antioxidants. So what are antioxidants? Well, in our body, there are chemicals called free radicals that can damage our cells and our genetic material when in high quantities. Our body does generate these free radicals as a byproduct of turning food into energy after exercising, exposure to air pollution, and exposure to sunlight. These free radicals have an appetite for electrons, which can change the structure or function of substances in our body. These free radicals can also damage instructional code in the strands of our DNA. Excessive amount of these free radicals may also cause oxidative stress, which can damage our cells and increase our risk for chronic disease. Now, fortunately for us, our bodies make molecules to counteract these free radicals, but we can also get these defenders from food called antioxidants. So antioxidants have a chemical property where they act as electron donors and give electrons to the free radicals. Antioxidants are also involved in mechanisms to help repair DNA and maintain health of our cells. Now, one thing to remember is that antioxidants work with other antioxidants and substances. They do not work alone or in isolation. And that's important to remember related to the idea of taking antioxidant supplements. In fact, research has shown that in some instances, taking antioxidant supplements can cause more harm than good and even increase the risk of cancer. That's because at high concentrations, substances that normally behave as antioxidants can have the opposite effect and act as pro-oxidants. So generally, it goes without saying, it's much better to get the antioxidants your body needs through a healthy diet. Now, here are a few examples, but not all inclusive, of vegetables that contain antioxidants. Bell peppers, and of course, we have a wide variety of colors to choose from. Beets, carrots, and radishes. Generally, vegetables that are purple, blue, red, orange, and yellow hues will be the best sources of antioxidants. Now, vegetables also contain another component called phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are a non-nutritive plant chemical that appear to have protective or disease-preventative properties. These are non-essential nutrients, meaning they are not required by the human body for sustaining life, and plants actually produce these chemicals to protect themselves. So recent research demonstrate that they may protect humans against disease as well. There are more than 1,000 known phytochemicals. Benefits of phytochemicals may include things such as proper functioning of our immune system, protecting cells and DNA from damage leading to cancer, reducing inflammation within our body, slowing the growth rate of some cancer cells, helping to regulate hormones, and even protecting our eye health and vision. So a few examples, not all inclusive, of vegetables that contain phytochemicals would be our cruciferous vegetables, like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, our green leafy vegetables like kale and collard greens, tomatoes, spinach, and pumpkin. And it's really best to eat a wide variety of vegetables, as these different colors represent different phytochemicals, especially the red, green, and orange vegetables. Now, vegetables also contain other components that may play a role in epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is the research and study of the modification to our DNA or surrounding proteins that impact gene expressions that can occur without changing the actual DNA sequence. The nutrients we extract from our food enter metabolic pathways where they are manipulated, modified, and molded into molecules so that our bodies can use them. One such pathway is responsible for making methyl groups. These are important epigenetic tags that can silence genes that may cause harm. This process does not change the gene, it only turns the genes on or turns the genes off. Familiar nutrients like folic acid, the B vitamins, and S-adenosyl methionine, or SAM for short, are key components of this methyl-making pathway. So diets that are high in these methyl-donating nutrients can rapidly alter gene expression in a positive way. So the best sources of food would be those that are part of the methionine or SAM synthesis, also foods that increase histones, foods that increase the methylation process, foods that help break down toxic byproducts, and or increase methylation. Now, a couple examples of vegetables that may have an epigenetic effect include peppers and spinach, as they contain methionine, which is required for that SAM synthesis. Leafy green vegetables, which contain folic acid and are part of the methionine synthesis. And vitamin B6 vegetables, such as spinach, potatoes, winter squash, which are also part of the methionine synthesis. So what's the recommended intake of vegetables? It's generally recommended that we get 2 to 3 cups minimum per day for adults. Now, this could vary depending on one's age and gender. A few other beneficial vegetable choices not already mentioned might include turnips, asparagus, zucchini, and eggplants. So make sure you check out the myplate.gov website for more information on the vegetable group. Now, if we take a look at our healthy buzzwords, vegetables can easily fit into all of these. They're plant-based, they come from plants. They're whole foods if they're eaten raw without processing. They provide fiber that can improve our individual's gut microbiome. They contain phytochemicals, so they are anti-inflammatory foods. Some of the vegetables contain methionine or are part of the methionine SAM synthesis, so they can be called epigenetic foods. And certainly we can use the term superfoods because they truly are a superfood, as they are low in calorie with a high nutrient content. So there are many reasons to include vegetables in an eating pattern. Make sure to check out your favorite vegetable stand or produce aisle in your supermarket and select your favorite vegetables for inclusion in your healthy eating. So a second food group or subfood group is fish and shellfish. Fish and shellfish can contribute the components of protein, calcium, zinc, iodine, iron, magnesium, potassium, and of course, our good old omega-3 fatty acids, just to name a few. Now, omega-3 fatty acids are a type of polyunsaturated fat and deemed essential as our bodies need it but can't produce it, so we have to get it from our diet. So we've heard that eating fish and shellfish helps to fight heart disease in several ways. It may protect the heart against the development of erratic and potentially deadly cardiac arrhythmia. It may help to lower blood pressure and heart rate. It may improve our blood vessel function, and even at higher doses, maybe even lower our triglyceride levels and ease inflammation. Omega-3s may also help with hormone development that regulates blood clotting, contraction, and relaxation of our arterial walls. And of course, two of the most important or well-known omega-3s are EPA and DHA. So if you want to get omega-3 fatty acids in our diet, a couple examples to consume would be things like salmon, crab, tuna, fish oil, krill oil, or cod liver oil. And speaking of food coming from the water, note that seaweed and algae are also good choices for getting your omega-3s. So fish and shellfish, just like vegetables, may also contain components that are part of the epigenetic process. So fish may contain methionine, which again promotes the SAM synthesis. Shellfish may contain vitamin B12, which is part of the methionine synthesis. And shellfish also contain betaine, which breaks down the toxic byproducts of SAM synthesis. So what's the recommendation with regards to fish and shellfish? Generally speaking, we should eat about 8 to 12 ounces per week, selecting those that are going to be lower in mercury. Some examples of fish, shellfish not already mentioned that might be good choices because they're low in mercury would be shrimp, cod, tilapia, oysters, and mussels. But note that consuming too much omega-3s from fish oil or other fortified foods could actually take a toll on your health and lead to side effects such as high blood sugar and an increased risk of bleeding, altered immune function, and altered response to viral or bacterial infections. So it's definitely a fine balance. If we take a look at our buzzwords related to fish and shellfish, they can be considered anti-inflammatory as they contain omega-3 fatty acids. They could be related to the epigenetic foods, as some of the fish and shellfish contain methionine, vitamin B12, or betaine. The heart healthy, again, because they have the omega-3 fatty acids. And we could even call them a superfood because they are nutrient dense, and some are also low in calorie, depending on how we actually choose to prepare them. So make your fish and shellfish choices today and get on a path to healthy eating. Our third subgroup that we're taking a look at is nuts and seeds. These types of foods are great sources of protein, healthy fats, fiber, vitamins, vitamin E, magnesium, zinc, as well as potassium. Now, nuts and seeds also contain a component that is a plant sterol called phytosterol. The cell structure of that phytosterol looks and acts like cholesterol, so it competes with cholesterol for absorption by your digestive system. When your body digests plant sterols instead of cholesterol, it removes some of that cholesterol as waste. This results in lower cholesterol levels and improved health. Nuts and seeds have also been found to help maintain healthy blood vessels and blood pressure. Research has found more than 250 different types of phytosterols. Now, most of us can benefit from eating foods that contain these phytosterols, especially if we have heart disease or a family history of heart disease, or if we have high cholesterol levels, including familial hypercholesterolemia. On the other hand, there are some individuals who need to be careful with phytosterols. Phytosterols aren't recommended for people who have a genetic disorder called cytosterolemia, in which cholesterol and plant sterols build up in the body. So a few examples of nuts and seeds that could be consumed might be things like almonds, macadamia nuts, flax seeds, and chia seeds. So nuts and seeds also contain components that may be associated with epigenetics. Examples of these foods would be sunflower seeds, which contain folic acid, which is part of the methionine synthesis. Sesame seeds and Brazil nuts contain methionine, which is part of the SAM synthesis. So if we did want to consume nuts and seeds, what's the recommended amount we should be taking? It's generally recommended that we consume about 3 to 4 handfuls each week. Of course, some of us have bigger hands than the others, or about 15 grams per day. So additional types of nuts and seeds that might be appropriate to choose would be things like hazelnuts, pecans, walnuts, and some seeds like hemp seeds, sesame seeds, and pumpkin seeds. Now, if we take a look at our healthy buzzwords, nuts and seeds fit into a lot of these categories. They're plant-based as they come from plant sources. If we eat them raw, they're going to be whole foods. They provide fiber that can improve our individual's gut microbiome. They're epigenetic in that they're involved in the synthesis of methionine and SAM. They're anti-inflammatory as they contain monounsaturated fats, which are known to have an anti-inflammatory effect. They're heart healthy as they contain phytosteroids and unsaturated fatty acids to reduce cholesterol levels. And so certainly that word superfood could apply to nuts and seeds, as they are definitely packed with a high nutrient content. Nuts and seeds can be a great addition to salads and smoothies, eaten as a snack, or added to sauces and vegetables. Due to the high calorie and fat content, we may want to watch the portion size, but we still want to enjoy them. Our fourth or last food subgroup is something called pulses. Now, pulses are the edible seeds of plants in the legume family. Pulses grow in pods and come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors, such as beans, peas, and lentils. This food group contains components such as protein, folate, insoluble and soluble fiber, iron, phosphorus, poly and mono unsaturated fatty acids, just to name a few. Pulses also contain a component known as slow digesting resistant starch. Slow digesting resistant starch has a low glycemic index. And the glycemic index, if you're not familiar, ranks food on a scale from 0 to 100. The low end of the scale has foods that have little effect on blood sugar levels. For example, beans may be around 20 to 45, peas are at a level around 22, and lentils somewhere around 32. So this type of starch is not fully digested and is considered a form of fiber, which is going to promote bulky stools and act as a prebiotic to beneficial bacteria like bifidobacteria. Now, a few examples of pulses, if you're not familiar with pulses, would be things like chickpeas, lentils, white beans, and kidney beans. Pulses also contain another component called linoleic and oleic fatty acids. Oleic acid is a common monounsaturated fatty acid. It's attracted a lot of attention owing to its effectiveness in regulating our food intake and energy metabolism. And it's also suggested that oleic acid might improve heart conditions by lowering cholesterol and reducing inflammation. Now, linoleic acid is an essential polyunsaturated fatty acid found in plant oils. It's been reported to reduce blood cholesterol and to play a role in preventing cardiovascular disease by reducing total and LDL cholesterol. There's also some evidence that it might improve insulin sensitivity and blood pressure. So we could get these fatty acids from sunflower oil, which would be the oleic, safflower and poppy seed oil, which would be the linoleic. So what is the recommended intake for pulses? It's about 3 cups per week, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So other examples of pulses, again, if you're not that familiar with this term, would be things like pinto beans, lima beans, black beans, soybeans, black-eyed peas, and split peas. So if we take a look at our healthy buzzwords, pulses fit in a lot of categories. They're from plant sources, so they're plant-based. They help with our healthy microbiome because it contains soluble and insoluble fiber, and it's considered a prebiotic. It contains things like zinc, fiber, and phytochemicals to help reduce our oxidative stress and inflammation, so they're anti-inflammatory. They can be considered heart healthy as they contain fiber, folate, and phytochemicals to reduce cholesterol levels. So ultimately, we could take a look at using that term superfoods because they do help to reduce the risk of heart disease and promote weight management while being packed with nutrients. So incorporating pulses into our diet can be easy and delicious. Why not try chickpea pulses and hummus? Add beans to dips and salsas. Add pea protein into smoothies, or add pulses to soups and casseroles. Pulses are available in the dried format or already packaged in cans or plastic containers ready to eat. So get ready for a nutrient-packed food. In conclusion, there are many buzzwords that are used to describe a healthy eating pattern. We reviewed a few of these terms in relation to the chemical components that are found in the various foods in our diet. A key to remember when eating healthy is to include a variety of colorful foods to ensure that all the important nutrients and other components of foods are included. So here's to healthy eating, everyone.